video is quite a serious matter because there is a lot of books here. It's just been one of those months. It's been a little bit stressful, personally, professionally, regardless of the fact that there's a pandemic, and then on top of that, it's that time of year where the anniversary of my dad's passing is sort of approaching, so I've just been like on a bit of a roller coaster of emotions and been buying more books than normal. Like typically I feel my book hauls include a lot of books sent to me by publishers and that I've sourced elsewhere, and I haven't necessarily actually spent too much money, but I take that back this month. I've spent quite a lot of money on books, and I know that doesn't solve any of those problems or really like repair any of those emotions, but you know, I'm human and this is something that we tend to do. I'm sure you can all relate. So I do have a lot to show you and I should therefore probably just like crack on with it given how many there are. Before I actually get into the books I bought myself, however, I do have a subscription box that was sent to me that I'm super excited about, and this I've been like refraining from opening over the past few days so that I can share it with you, and I am so glad that I finally get to open it up and see what book is inside. But this was sent to me by Discover Your Story. This text here on the front says, "Reader lives 1,000 lives," which is absolutely true. Reading is such a joy and gift, and I am so excited to see what's in here. So most importantly, I think, before we even get into the very exciting contents, is that the subscription box service Discover Your Story XOXO have given me a discount coupon. So if you would like to give this subscription service a shot for the first time and you haven't done so in the past, then you can get 15% off your first box, which is so incredibly kind. The code is Bookish Thoughts, which is just my channel name. So first up we have a tote bag. Don't mind there's a little bit of packaging on it still, but this is a little logo here of two women reading other books, and it says, "My problem with reading books is that I get distracted by other books." I get it now. This is actually like literally the perfect tote bag. This sums up exactly like how I feel all the time. So yeah, this is brilliant. I will wear that with pride and everyone will know exactly the kind of person I am. We then have a Yankee candle. Oh, this is so exciting. I love candles, like I'm a right candle burner, so can never go wrong with another one. And this one is red raspberry. Oh, raspberries are one of my top 3 fruits, so this smells incredible. This is going to go so well when I'm reading my book, which I really want to discover. We have some sheets of paper which have some information about the books. We also have some newspaper clippings, which I feel are all like clues to what's going on inside the book. So I think we should open that up before I look at the rest of the bits and pieces. But this is the book here. I'm so excited. I love surprise books. We have The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. I don't think I've heard of this one actually. Set in Los Angeles 1992, that was the year I was born. Ashley Bennett's life is perfect. Living in a big house on the right side of town, her parents have worked hard to create a model black family image and ensure Ashley and her sister are protected and safe. Then 4 LAPD officers are acquitted after beating a black man, Rodney King, half to death. Suddenly Ashley's not just one of the girls, she's one of the black kids. As violent protests engulf the city, Ashley's own world starts to burn. The prejudices of her family rise to the surface and her family splinters and cracks. Suddenly Ashley questions, who is the us and who is the them? Okay, this sounds absolutely incredible. I'm really looking forward to reading that. And then like I said, there are some like little bits and pieces to go alongside this book. We've got a little bit of artwork here, we've got some information about the book, and actually one of the things I think is the most wonderful about this is that it also has information on supporting causes related to the book. So this is how can I help? Educate yourself, stand up against discrimination and become an advocate. And then we also have 3 charities to support that are related to the Black Lives Matter cause. So I think that is absolutely fantastic. These are newspaper clippings that go alongside the historical events that are the basis of this book. So the murder of Rodney King was a real event and there's lots of information there, so it's really informative. We then have, I assume, things that, like I said, sort of, yeah, so this is a little blow up donut with a little label inside that says chapter 1. So I think I should read this note when I'm reading the book in case that contains any spoilers. We also have a little cookie here which has another little note on it that says miss you. Definitely going to be eating that. We have in here, ooh, what's this? Ooh, a fortune cookie! This to go with chapter 3. We have some Fizz Whiz candy. This is like my childhood. I remember this so well and I'm very excited to eat this. Some chocolate hearts. Oh, there's a few of these. Oh my goodness, they keep coming. They're all like inside here. Chocolate hearts. Oh, I'm gonna eat those. This is just like providing me my snacks for the day. We have an absolutely gorgeous V&A bookmark. This is beautiful. Definitely going to be using this whilst I read my book. And that sort of covers the contents of this. I've sort of sprayed packaging everywhere, but the book sounds fantastic. I love the theme and all the little knickknacks that come with it, especially all of the information and like advocacy information that you can use. I think that is incredible. So I think this is such a lovely subscription box with a really great sort of message and intention, as well as a really fun book and some bits and pieces. I'm really excited to read that. Thank you so much to Discover Your Story for sending me a box, and like I said, you can get 15% off your first box with the code Bookish Thoughts, so I will leave all the information in the description box down below. But without further ado, let's crack on with the books that I bought and was sent. So first of all, the books that I bought myself. I have 2 books here that I bought in the second-hand bookshop Armchair Books in Edinburgh. So luckily for me, I did actually have £3 store credit on a gift card for there, so I was able to get a little bit of money off these. They were both £2.50 each, so only cost me £2 altogether, and they're both cheesy fantasy books. Can you tell? I am a sucker for mass market cheesy fantasy cover. Love these kind of designs. They tell me exactly what I'm going to get and I'm probably going to love it, so I don't need to know much else. We have The Enchantresses by Vera Chapman, and from what I understand from reading the back of this one, it is a retelling of the legends surrounding King Arthur, so the Arthurian legends, but it's about a group of women from that era. So we have Igraine, the beautiful Duchess of Cornwall, once inflamed the lust of Uther Pendragon, and so was born Arthur, the once and future king. But Igraine's husband had given her 3 daughters, Arthur's half-sisters, and it's about those 3 daughters. So I think this sounds so much fun. And then we have a book by Tanith Lee. This is Delirium's Mistress. Now, I've never actually read a book by Tanith Lee before, but she comes up a lot as sort of like classic fantasy authors that you should check out, that I would like to read. So obviously I had to snap this up because it is the first in a series, and quite often when I find these mass markets in shops, they are not the first in series, they're like book 5. So any book ones I have to grab. And this is about a young woman who was actually born of a virgin priestess, so Immaculate Conception. She is destined for the world, child both of the night and the day, half demon and half mortal. Only lover and hero can free her. So looking forward to reading both of those. I then picked myself up a book which I had had on my wish list for a little while and decided to treat myself to because it was reduced, and that is The Changeling's Journey by Christine Spurs. So I know that Ashley over at Frolic Through Fiction has read this and really enjoyed that. It might even be the reason that it ended up on my wish list in the first place. But it's sort of Celtic inspired historical fantasy, which you know are my buzzwords and I'm always here for. It's about Morven, who is a changeling, so like a fairy child that is left in the mortal world and swapped for a mortal child, and she is the only changeling now in her community. There used to be another of her kind called Ailsa, but Ailsa is dead and she is potentially at threat as well, so I think that sounds so fantastic. I love changeling lore, I love sort of like Celtic fairy lore, and it just looks stunning. We then have a book that I picked up in Blackwell's 100% on the recommendation of the bookseller there, which was so kind. I have read books by this author in the past, it's T. Kingfisher, and really enjoyed them, but she really sold me on this title and that I needed to pick it up. I wasn't going to, and then just the way she described it, I had to have it, and I'm so excited. It's The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher, and this is a horror novel but with like fairy tale elements. So all of the books I've read by T. Kingfisher in the past have been fairy tale retellings, and this apparently like imbibes that same sort of like folklore, fairy tale, magical tradition, but very much on the horror side of things. And it's all about a young girl called Mouse who's cleaning out her grandmother's attic after she's passed away, and about the things that she finds there, presumably kind of creepy or magical and adventurous, so I'm excited to see what they are. On the topic of horror, I think the only other sort of horror type book I have here that I purchased is Hex Life. This is Wicked New Tales of Witchery. So this is a collection of short stories, creepy short stories, all with witches at their centre by a selection of authors including Theodora Goss. So this was like the initial reason I picked this up off the bookshelf, also in Blackwell's, because I recently read a book by Theodora Goss and loved it. It was The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, so I would really like to read more by them, and this might also introduce me me to some more exciting authors because we have Kelly Armstrong, Amber Benson, Chessia Burke, Rachel Kane, Kristen Dearborn, Rachel Autumn Deering, and honestly tons more. There's quite a few in here. So I like an anthology like this on a theme that I know I enjoy, with some authors that I already know I enjoy, but with authors I haven't heard of and may discover because of it. So I'm looking forward to this one. We then have two books I picked up in Waterstones because if I spent a certain amount of money then I was going to get a £10 voucher, and that is like an absolute excuse, isn't it? So I bought these two and I now have my £10, which I'm gonna need to spend on something else. I mean, what can you do? And these were buy one get one half price as well, which obviously improves the price a little bit, and one is middle grade and one is a translated literary novel. So we have Starfell, Willow Moss and the Lost Day by Dominique Valenti. So this is first in a middle grade series, and this is just beautiful. Look at those end papers, they're blue with little yellow stars. Love this, and I've been really enjoying my middle grade recently because I've been a bit slumpy, and I think middle grade is such like a fun one as an adult to kind of like get you out of your own head a little bit and provide that escapism, fast-paced magical worlds that you might need if you're feeling slumpy. So it's about Willow Moss, whose magical power is basically that she can find lost things, but completely useless things that nobody really cares about, so she's seen as kind of not very powerful amongst her community of witches, until another witch comes to ask for her assistance in finding Last Tuesday, which has disappeared, and its disappearance may cause the entire fabric of the world to unravel, so suddenly her power isn't so useless, is it? And I think that sounds like such a fun and unique concept, and I'm looking forward to that. We then have, like I mentioned, a translated literary fiction novel called The Discomfort of Evening by Mariette Lucas Rijneveld, and I don't know much about this except that it won the Man Booker International Prize this year, and I've really enjoyed some of the books in the past that I've read that have been shortlisted or have won the Man Booker International Prize. I think it is a fun way to discover new translated authors I haven't previously read, and this I believe is by a Dutch writer, so I basically just picked it up on the basis of that and the fact that it sounds a little bit surreal and strange, and is also recommended by Max Porter here on the front. So all of those things together meant I thought it might be fun to try out. It's about 10-year-old Jazz, who has a unique way of experiencing her universe. The feeling of udder ointment on her skin as protection against harsh farmyard winters, the texture of green warts like capers on migrating toads, the sound of blush words that aren't in the Bible, but when a tragic accident upturns the family, her curiosity warps into a wild vortex of disturbing fantasies, unlocking a darkness that threatens to derail them. So yeah, excited to give this one a shot. We then have a good old supermarket books. So I was in Sainsbury's doing the weekly shop and I spotted this, which is Dragon Mountain by Katie and Kevin Sang, and I'd actually had this on my wish list as it were. I'd seen it recommended as a recent like middle grade release that sounded up my street. Obviously it's about dragons. There's a dragon right here on the front. I also believe it's set in China. It's about a 12-year-old boy who's sent to Camp Dragon to be trained to work with, to ride dragons. I don't know, but honestly that sounds brilliant. A summer camp to learn to live with dragons. Yes, please, I will read that. Then another book that I ordered on a complete whim online is Good Girls Die First by Catherine Foxfield. This is a like YA thriller from what I understand, and it just sounded like really compulsively readable, and it wasn't very expensive, so yeah, I had no self-control basically. It's about 10 teenagers lured to a derelict carnival, each one with a dark past they are determined to keep hidden. As they start to die, is it an unknown killer they need to fear? Or each other? I mean, what, would you not pick that up? That sounds so good. We then have another second-hand find, and this one was only 50p, so I couldn't resist giving it a shot. I hadn't heard of it before, but when I saw it for 50p, I decided to pick it up, and that is Wildthorn by Jane Eagland. This is a historical novel, but like a YA historical novel. It's about 17-year-old Louisa Cosgrove who longs to break free from her respectable life as a Victorian doctor's daughter. But her dreams become a nightmare when she's sent to Wildthorn Hall. Labelled a lunatic, she's deprived of her liberty and even her real name. I remember why I picked this one up now, not only because it's a YA historical, but I am fascinated by books that explore the treatment of mental health, especially surrounding women and hysteria in the sort of 1900s. I think it's a really disturbing and sort of important topic in the history of like women's medicine, so I'm always intrigued to see how authors handle it, and this is just like another one to try. I then have two more books that I picked up myself before I move on to the books that were gifted or sent to me by publishers. And the first one is Savage Her Reply by Deirdre Sullivan. I've been so excited for this to come out. I love Deirdre Sullivan. She writes YA novels and fairy tale retellings and short stories that I think are absolutely fantastic. This cover actually perfectly matches another book that I have by her, which is a collection of fairy tale retellings, but this one is not a collection of stories, it's a retelling of one fable, and it's an Irish folktale. It's the story of the children of Lear, which is not actually a fairy tale I'm that familiar with. I don't know if I'm that up on my Irish folklore, to be honest, but it's something I would like to read more about. So if you have any recommendations of like collections of Irish folklore, let me know, because I'd like to read more. But I'm always interested in a fairy tale retelling, especially if it's by an author that I know I already love. So this sounds absolutely magical, and the cover is just stunning. I'm a sucker for a naked hardback, and this is one of the most beautiful, so love to have that on my shelves. And then whilst we're on the topic of naked hardbacks, I also have a non-fiction book, which is by Heroines of Olympus, the Women of Greek Mythology by Ellie Mackin Roberts. So Ellie is somebody that I've followed online for years. I've met her at conferences in the past. She's an absolutely phenomenal woman in the field of classics, and when she announced that she had this new book coming out all about women in Greek mythology, I knew I had to pick it up. This one's definitely aimed at adults. It does not shy away from the gory and darker details of this mythology and the things that happen to a lot of the women in mythology. It's also absolutely stunning inside. Like, can you believe? There's Iphis and Ianthe, which is from a story that is most well known from Ovid. Nausicaa, who is in the Odyssey, Andromeda, and then it's not just one page per person. We have that introduction and then the full story here with lots of information, and I'm so excited to dive into this and read more about these women. There are 50 in total, and I think this is just going to offer a really important modern feminist perspective from somebody who is very, very well versed and very, very knowledgeable in this area, so would highly recommend. We then, like I said, have some books that were gifted to me or sent to me by publishers. So I only actually have 3 books that were sent to me by publishers, so I'll start with those before I move on to the gifts. The first one is Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands by Mary Seacole. So this is non-fiction in the Macmillan Collector's Library editions, published by Pan Macmillan. So this was sent to me by Book Break, which is the Pan Macmillan YouTube channel. The blurb says that Mary Seacole was determined to help care for English troops in the Crimean War. A trained nurse with a wealth of medical knowledge, she journeyed thousands of miles from her native Jamaica. However, once she reached England, she was not only refused official support, but she was also turned down for a job by Florence Nightingale. Undaunted, she travelled to Crimea, where she set up her famous hotel caring for British soldiers. From there, she supplied food, drink and welcome respite from the front line. So this is all about her life in her own words, and I think that sounds fantastic. We then also, from Pan Macmillan, specifically their Picador imprint, have a collection of poetry called Cannibal by Sophia Sinclair. I think this cover is absolutely stunning. In fact, who is this art by? The art is by Firli Baez, just beautiful. Firewood Pretending to be Fire, it's called. And I'm always just intrigued to check out new poets, and have discovered some of my favourites through reading Picador's line and collection of who they published. This one apparently evokes the poet's Jamaican childhood and reaches beyond to explore history, race relations in America, womanhood, otherness and exile, as well as linking with Shakespeare's Tempest. So that should be absolutely fascinating, and thankfully The Tempest is a Shakespeare I have read. We then, funnily enough, on the sort of theme of Tempest, have K Tempest's new book. Obviously nothing to do with the Tempest play, but K Tempest is actually one of my favourite poets, and this is their first non-fiction title called On Connection, which is published by Faber in this beautiful, lovely edition. I think this is absolutely gorgeous, cannot get over the design, but it's about creativity and the relationship between the creative individual and creativity, and what it can tell you about yourself, which I think sounds fascinating. And like I said, I'm already just a big fan of K Tempest. We then, like I mentioned, have some books that were very kindly gifted to me. And in saying that, actually I have one book that I borrowed from a friend that I thought I would include. So this I borrowed from my friend Jill, and I'm so excited to read, which is Daphne and Velma, The Vanishing Girl by Josephine Ruby. If you cannot tell by the title and cover, this is a story all about Daphne and Velma from the Scooby-Doo universe. It's a YA book, and I absolutely love Scooby-Doo. I've been a die-hard fan since I was a kid, so of course I was excited to read this. Plus Jill's already read it and said it was fantastic, so I'm very grateful that she's lent it to me. We then have some gifts I was sent from my wish list like incredibly generously. I always get quite overwhelmed when I'm sent gifts from my wish list, and I really don't expect or need it, but I am very grateful, so thank you. This first one was sent to me by Olivia, and it's Blanca Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. Now, I've never read any Anna Marie McLemore, which might surprise you because they sound exactly like the kind of author I would love. They write predominantly queer, magic realism, fantasy-esque novels aimed at a YA audience, and apparently their prose is stunning from all the reviews I have heard in the past. Plus, every single premise sounds like something I would like. So the fact that Olivia sent this one to me was so kind, and I'm so excited to read it. It's about the It's about a group of sisters. It's about a group of sisters who are rivals and opposites. Blanca, as obedient and graceful as Roja, is vicious and manipulative. They know that because of generations old spell, their family is bound to a bevy of swans deep in the woods. They know that one day the swans will pull them out into a dangerous game that will leave one of them a girl and trap the other in the body of a swan. That sounds absolutely fascinating, and I think the fact that it's a sister rivalry is also really interesting because it brings up a lot of interesting themes and topics. So super excited to read this. Thank you so much, Olivia. So this first one was sent to me by Maddie, and it's Blanca Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. And all in all, it just sounds absolutely spectacular. So thank you so much again, Maddie, for this one. It was so kind of you. I was then sent another book by Olivia, which was so generous. Thank you so much, Olivia. And this is such an exciting book to have in my hands because it is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. And have I heard a bad word about this book? No. Everyone has been raving about this, including other booktubers that I really trust, like Kathy. So I'm really excited to have my own copy. It is a YA fantasy novel with a trans protagonist, from what I understand. We follow Yadriel, who is both trans and Latinx and dealing with a lot of rejection from the people they know, whilst accidentally summoning a ghost to our world. So drama ensues, and like I said, I've heard fantastic things, so thank you so much, Olivia. I was then sent 2 books anonymously by one person, which is just so kind, and I absolutely respect your right to remain anonymous, but if you want to let me know who you are, I would love to thank you personally. But I have a non-fiction book and then a fiction book. So this is the book that was on my wish list, which is Venus and Aphrodite, A History of the Goddess by Bettany Hughes. Bettany Hughes is a really fun, accessible scholar that I really enjoy watching documentaries and reading books by. I have her book on Helen of Troy, which is excellent, and this is her most recent release, which, as you can tell, is all about Venus/Aphrodite. So Venus is the Roman name for the Greek goddess Aphrodite. And I am absolutely fascinated by Aphrodite. I think she's one of the most fascinating Greek goddesses. So I'm really excited to read this, plus it is stunning. Then alongside this, I was sent a book that wasn't on my wish list, but was chosen specifically for me by the very kind gifter, and I'm so overwhelmed because it sounds so brilliant, and that is Just One Damn Thing After Another by Jodie Taylor. Honestly, never heard of this book, but it sounds so good, so thank you so much for choosing it for me. It's about Madeline Maxwell, who is recruited by St Mary's Institute of Historical Research, and then she discovers that historians there don't just study the past, they revisit it. But one wrong move and history will fight back to the death, and Max soon discovers it's not just history she's fighting. Follow the tea-soaked disaster magnates of St Mary's as they rattle around history, because wherever the historians go, chaos is sure to follow. I love it. Time-travelling historians. I wish this was me. This sounds so much fun, and I'm so excited to read it. So thank you so much, whoever you are, for these lovely gifts. I then have 2 more gifts that were from people I know in real life. So the first one is from my Aunt Linda, and this is the Virago Book of Witches. So Virago are a publishing house that specialise in literature written by women, and this is a collection of fairy tales, folk tales, short stories written by women about witches all in one place. Plus it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, this is now one of the most beautiful books on my bookshelves. We have Scottish witches, Japanese witches, we have Irish witches, German witches, witches from all over the globe, and I'm so excited to learn some more witchy folklore. We then lastly have a book that was a gift from my friend Jill, and that is The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This is an adult thriller novel by an author who has had a lot of praise. I think she's got 2 thrillers out and both have just received such good recommendations ever since. This is about a group of people brought together at a hunting lodge in the remote Scottish Highlands only to discover that they are the ones being hunted. And I mean, the Scottish Highlands are obviously incredibly spooky, always the best setting for most books, to be honest. Fantasy books, thriller books, anywhere, if it's set in the Scottish Highlands I'll probably read it. Plus I'm really in the mood for my like fast-paced thrillers at the moment. So those are actually all the books. We're at the end, we did it! Well done guys, well done for lasting to the end, well done for me for managing to speak for this long in one unimpeded flow. So thank you for sticking around, thank you for watching. I'd love to hear if you've read any of these books or are interested in reading any of these books. Again, don't forget that discount code for Discover Your Story, which is Bookish Thoughts, if you're interested in checking them out. And thank you once again for just like stopping by my channel. So until next time, happy reading and I'll see you all again soon. Bye everyone.